So I went on LinkedIn last week and I asked if there were any Webflow developers that didn't really consider themselves as designers and were open for feedback on their portfolio. So I got a bunch of replies, and that got me thinking that instead of going into each portfolio and just giving, a quick glance and a couple comments, couple feedback, like I've seen maybe some other videos like that, I would instead rather like really deep dive into one of the portfolio so I can really give some constructive feedback and also ideas on what I would do to improve it if it were my portfolio. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So the portfolio that we're going to be reviewing today is the one from Vladimir Petrovsky. He told me on LinkedIn that he was okay being featured on the video. So thank you, Vlad, for submitting. And if you want to submit your own website, you can either just connect with me on LinkedIn and wait for maybe the next time that I post that kind of question, or then you can also submit it to the original post that I did last week, or just send me a DM. So I'll try to look and maybe find another great candidate for that. All right, so let's refresh the page and let us examine this portfolio. First thing I'm gonna mention is, what I like about it is this animation was really, really smooth, really well executed. Same for the hero section. I quite like the beige color scheme. It's quite my style as well. Very nice animation here as well. The rest is being grayed out a little bit while this one is in focus. Everything is very smooth. Then about me section, pretty simple. And then what I offer, which sounds a little bit similar to me than what I do. And here already the animation here, if we refresh, it already stood out to me as not being the same style or level as the rest. This looks a little bit off. And then we have the CTA here, which is kind of like a footer. But yeah, we'll get into that we'll get into that when I'm talking about what we would improve. So the first thing that I notice here is that he's going for quite a minimal style, like this kind of big type and minimal style. And I feel like for this style to work, you need to be really, really good with typography and the small elements that you're using. Because there isn't a lot of elements to play around with, all the small elements that you have need to be really perfect. So yeah, and the first thing that I notice is the font. I don't know if it fits really that style. I get that he wants to have a little bit more like friendly font, but I don't know if this one really does him any favor, especially for that style where you have this kind of big font. You can really see everything about the font, and I don't know if this is the best choice in this instance. I'm also not sure if the font is really pairing with the logo. They're kind of similar style, but not really. And same with this. I'm not sure if the pairing is the best here. Other than that, I also think like I said, I like the color initially, but the green is also kind of random. I feel like it's only showing here, and then that's it. So you don't really get that kind of secondary color on the website. If we continue on the typography, like I said, these minimal websites, they need to be like perfect. And I feel like there is some inconsistencies with the typography, with the sizes. There's maybe a bit too many sizes. This, what I do is really big, but this one is small, which is like the heading for the section. And same with this one. So yeah, I mean, I understand that this is part of this section, but then this one is very close to this one. I feel like there's not enough like clear hierarchy and contrast between the type. And if you want to go for that big, big typography style, I feel like you need to also have like very small typography, because if everything is big, like we have a little bit here, then nothing is big basically. And then we have some weird alignment also. I mean, the line here kind of tells me that this is the container, but this goes off from the container. So it doesn't feel like there's really this, strict grid layout being used here. I'm not even sure, is this aligned? Yeah, here there's also a problem where like some of the things are not really aligned with each other. So again, there's not that many elements here. So I feel like everything should be absolutely perfect here, like perfectly aligned and everything. And maybe you could play around with some type of grid. Usually this style comes with this 12 column grid, which will help you kind of align everything together in a nice and creative way. Then if I go a bit more into the UX, I know this is mostly about the visual design, but I think it's, it's going hand in hand, and it's important to mention, even though the loader actually is quite nice and well executed. I don't know if it's needed here because the page is, it's not going to take a long time to load. So why do I need to wait that it loads when, my computer, my internet can probably load this instantly because there isn't much going on. So yeah, that's kind of a personal preference, but I hate waiting if I don't have to. Then we have button to my work. Okay, I feel like maybe it would be nice to have the next section visible here. Instead of having to click this, you would see right away. And then I know this is quite trendy, interaction. And like I said, it works quite well, but I feel like because you want to show your work, it might be nice to show the work without the visitor having to hover anything. Then we have one button here, which is pretty different to this one. So I feel like you should kind of decide what kind of buttons you want to have. Either it's square, either it's like full circle. I don't feel like here it needs to be full circle. And also when you click this, it goes to the next section. So do we really need a button here to go to the next section if you're already scrolling down? Probably not. And then this is more about, I guess, the content structure, but I would add what you offer into what you do, because to me that's kind of the same section. It's like, what do you do? This could be the paragraph, and then this you show exactly what service you offer. And then, like I said before, this doesn't really seem like a CTA to me. It looks like a footer, and so, people might tend to ignore whatever's in the footer. So you're kind of missing that opportunity to really get them to contact you. All right, now let's jump into Figma where we can play around a little bit. Like I said, I don't want this to just be a few comments, a few critique, but I want to show what I would actually do and how to implement it. So I did a quick screenshot of your portfolio here just for a quick reference. And here I did a first iteration of your design with some of the things I already mentioned. But basically, I tried to keep the same concept, like similar color, same style of, this very minimal and simple style. But I tried to incorporate some of those design principles, make things, more consistent, following a grid, etc. So the first thing that I did was changing the font. I went for classic sans serif, simple, but beautiful font. Of course, you can play around with that, and typically if it was my portfolio, I would definitely try a million different font that would, fit with my personality and the kind of service that I give and how I want to be, seen on the web. Like all of this can be portrayed through actually a good font. So it's quite an important part. I would say it's 80% of your design is the font. So I would definitely spend a lot more time on that. Then I also implemented a 12 column grid just so that things can be really nicely aligned and I can start to play around a little bit with where to place my content. As long as, you know, it's within the grid, I can play around and see what looks best. I try to not have too many font sizes and keep things pretty consistent. So now we have our headings on each section looking exactly the same, and I added a little bit of color to it so that the whole website is not too monochromatic. Yeah, so kept this pretty simple here. Same with this section, nothing crazy. I just made things, you know, in their own column and try to align everything. I might have tweaked the lines a little bit to make them not so prominent, because I feel like the line from the section should be stronger in this instance. I mean, it could be opposite. It could be that you don't need a line at all, but I'm trying to follow, you know, your design. So this is what I did here. Here I also tried to, like I said, if all the fonts are big, then nothing is big. So I try to kind of have different sizes here. And like I said, playing also with the grid to create some interest. And I also mentioned before, I wasn't sure why these services that you have here are not part of what you do, because I feel like it should be. So I did it here. So now you have some copy to introduce what you do, and then you have the actual content here. And I would come up with either illustrations or photographies or icons, or I think your website overall is missing a little bit of, like, you know, visual interest, like any elements, visual elements. So I think here is a good opportunity to add that. And then for the about me, again, just playing with the grid, and it's not rocket science, just making things, you know, aligned. And I think it already looks a little bit more interesting and cleaner. And then I just created here like a last section, it's more like a CTA rather than just the footer. I think this looks a little bit funny also, that you have your icons here for social media kind of centered randomly. So that's why I added it here also in the about me section. But of course you would need also here a footer, just something simple, which I did not create here. But yeah, that's kind of like the before and after. And then I wanted to go a little bit deeper just to show that basically when I'm working on designs, I just iterate and iterate and iterate. So this is just the first iteration, and then I would go and try something again a little bit different, like take it a bit, you know, a step further. So I was mentioning that I wasn't sure if it was the best that your work was not visible on the website like this. You have to hover. So this is one option where you would have the actual work already visible here. And here you could play around with those buttons if you like that, like you had in the about me. So those buttons, you know, could work well if you're just hovering this section, and then this moves as well. You can view the website, and then you could have it as well on the CTA here. So I kept the idea of having this let's work together text here animating, but I made it into a proper section so that when you're hovering anywhere into that section, it would prompt me to send you a message or contact me or whatever you want there. But yeah, here is just a, you know, a small iteration further. I changed the layout a little bit because I saw that your images, they were this ratio. So I thought, you know, it would take this much space. So I think it's nice if everything is also aligned here. So I changed this just a little bit, but yeah, nothing crazy. Again, just to illustrate that, you know, now I would, if this was my portfolio, I would again duplicate, you know, try different variation and just really push the design and see what could work. What if we have a paragraph here and a button? Maybe that would be good. And yeah, just continue iterating. But this is where I landed for now, while trying to keep, you know, the essence of your portfolio and your initial design. So yeah. All right. So this is going to be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And, you know, once more, let's take a quick look at the original design, first iteration, just cleaning things up and then starting to push things forward a little bit. If you would like me to do this more often and have this as a series with multiple episodes, feel free to let me know in the comments and give me your link to your portfolio so I can take a look and pick the next portfolio to improve and redesign a little bit. All right, see you in the next video.